This video will be a continuation of my Laravel tips playlist series. So in this video I'm going to share the Eloquent accessor and mutator concept, the concept of accessors and mutators. So let's jump straight into the video. I'll do a brief overview of what accessors and mutators are. So if I go to Laravel 12.x docs, the newest doc, and go to Eloquent mutators and the topic Eloquent mutators and casting. And if I go to the introduction, let's read the first sentence. So what does it say? It says, accessors, mutators, and attribute casting allow you to transform Eloquent attribute values when you retrieve or set them. Retrieve or set them on model instances. So you can access or retrieve, mutate or set, and cast Eloquent model attribute values. Attribute values. So this is what accessors, mutators, and casts are basically. So if I go to the definition of accessors, so an accessor transforms an Eloquent attribute value when it is accessed. So your Eloquent attribute value, the model attribute value, can be transformed and when it is accessed. So how is it transformed? We'll implement the accessor in our implementation. So let's go into the implementation. Before going into the implementation of accessor, I have to set up the project. So in order to set up the project, I just have to run this command Laravel new, and I'll give a name, let's say accessor mutator. Okay, so if I run this command, it will create or set up a new project, and it will ask for some prompts. For example, it asks that would you like to install a starter kit? I would not want a starter kit. For testing, just pest, and I would not want to initialize a git repository, and it will create a Laravel project. So as you can see, the project is being created, and it will ask for which database will your application use. I'll just use SQLite, just a file-based database. So would you like to run the default database migrations? So yes, I would like to I like the default migrations, and the migration is not created yet. So would I like to create it? Yes, I would like to create it, and it creates the users table here and the cache and the jobs. So the project has been created. So now if I go to and write accessor and mutator, it will open the project for me. So this is the newly created project that I have created right now. So as you can see, it will be created. Now that we have set up the project, we can now implement the concept of accessor. So how can we implement it? So if I go to the code base, as you can see, this is a fresh Laravel project, the default user, and if I go to the migration file of the users, so this is the table users. There are these attributes: name, email, password, etc. Okay, so as you can see in the SQLite, in the users table, there is name, email verified, passwords, etc. So you can use this attribute name as an accessor. We can access the first and the last name. How can we access? For example, there is no first name and last name here. So how can we split the name into first name and last name in order to access only the first name or only the last name? So how can we do that? So if I go to the docs, as you can see, you have to write a method. For example, you have to write a first name. So a first name method. So the method name will be in camel case, and you have to declare all the return type would be of attribute. This class, Illuminate Database Eloquent class attribute. So for example, if I go to the user model and I define a method, protected method or function called first name, okay, and it will return what? Attribute. Let's say use this one, okay, this class. Okay, so this will be the return type. Okay, so now that I've returned, and there is a suggestion here. So the attribute has getters and setters. First use the get, because we can access, or the accessor is based on the get method. Okay, so this attribute class. So now what we can do here is we want to get the first name. Okay, the first name from the name. So what is the name? The name is we don't have to pass any value here. what we'll do here is, this is the full name. Okay, let's say this is the model name property. So what we can do here is take this, and what we can do here is use the explode function, and using a space, and then we can get the name from it. So what is the name? The full name, and the first index would contain the first name, and the second index would contain the last name. Okay, so this is how we can get the first name from it. So let's try this. Okay, so if I use the tinker session, and let's say use app models user, and let's say I create a user instance or a record. Let's say name is my name, which is Saif Kamal. The email, let's give my email. And let's say, just for the sake of testing, let's just say the password is in string 123456. Okay, so this user is created. So now if I try to get the user, this is the user. Okay, so now if I try to get the first name using calling in snake case, I would get the first name from it, which is Saif. And what is the full name? If I try to get the full name, which is the name property, so this is Saif Kamal. So what we did here is we made an accessor method, which is the first name, and it basically what does is separates the full name string based on space, and the first part, which is the first name, is taken and returned. So this is how we can access a attribute in a different way. So this is how how you can use or implement the accessor. Now we'll do a brief overview of the concept of mutator. So if I go to the defining a mutator section, and it says a mutator transforms an eloquent attribute value when it is set. So the mechanism of transforming an eloquent attribute value when it is already set is called a mutator. So to define a mutator, you may provide the set argument like this, the set argument in the attribute class, in order to define the attribute. When you are defining the attribute, you have to use the set method for the mechanism of mutator. So let's implement the mutator process. Now let's implement the mutator process. So if I go to the code base, as you can see, this is the first name method, and the get in the attribute class is used for accessors. So for mutator, we know that we have to use the set. So if I use the set and write the function, so now what I want to do here, my goal is, I have the full name, which is Saif Kamal. Okay, so the first name and the last name, this is the full name. So in the name attribute, here in the name attribute. Okay, so what I want to do here is I want to change the first name. So the Saif will no longer be Saif, it will be something else. Okay, so if I want to change the first name, what can I do? I want to get the last name, because I want to separate the last name first. So if I just use a variable called last name, and the last name would be what? If I use the explode function, PHP function, and it gets the full name and splits into an array of 2 elements, and the second element is the last name, the first element is the first name. So this is the last name, and the function will obviously take a string, because I'll set the value, and the value that will pass here will be used. Okay, so I've got the last name. Now I want to change the first name. So the change name, let's say the change name is what will be passed from the argument. Okay, so I'll set the value. So I'll take the value and store it in the changed name variable. Okay, so this is the name that would be put in the first name instead of Saif. Okay, So I have the last name, I have the first name. What I can do here now is the name property, which is the database column, the database attribute. This will be what? I'll use the implode function, the opposite of explode, with a space. Now it will add the first and the last name. So how can it add the first and the last name? The first name is the change name and the last name is the last name. Okay. So this is the first name, which is the change name, and this is the last name separated by a space. Okay. And we have to save the full name in the database, the updated name. So now Saif Kamal will be something like Nafis Kamal or Sakib Kamal, etc. So this is how this set method will be applied. So if I test this code, so if I go to the Tinker session and use the app models user and I call the first method, as you can see the first name is Saif Kamal right now. So now if I get the first name, if I call the first name, this method, the get method, the accessor, it will only get the first name. Okay. Now I want to set this name Saif, which is the first part, to let's say Sakib. Okay. So what I will do here is the first name, I'll pass a value here. Let's say Sakib. Okay. So what this will do here is it will take the value. The last name is separated. The change name the change name variable will store the value, and the name will be added. The first name and the last name would be added to form the new name and store it in the database. Okay. So if I use this now, as you can see, the name is changed. Okay. So if I go to the database, as you can see, the name variable no longer has Saif Kamal, it has Sakib Kamal now. Okay. So if I exit the session and try it again, let's say use the models user and get the first, as you can see, the name has been changed. So now if I call the first name, it will get only Sakib. So I can change it back to Saif as well. So I can do, let's say I change it back to Saif. Now it's back to Saif Kamal. So this is how you can implement the set method or the mutator of the first name. Now I want to show you some practical use cases of accessors and mutators. So I asked ChatGPT, can you provide some practical use cases for the concept of accessors and mutators in Laravel? So what is the response? So it says that there are some use cases. So here are some practical use cases. So let's see the number one. Number one use case is formatting data for readability. So the use case is storing dates. For example, if I want to store dates in a particular format, then I can use the accessor. Okay. Here, as you can see, the date is formatted in the local time zone. Number two, it says encrypting and decrypting sensitive data, sensitive information. Both accessors and mutators are used here. For example, in the national ID. National ID is a secure information. So as you can see, the set national ID attribute is the accessor is used to crypt or encrypt the national ID, and I can get the decrypted national ID using the mutator. Okay. So in the third use case, it says what? Automatically capitalizing names. So it's only mutator is used. So I can set the attribute. I can set the user names all in capital. Okay, capitalized format or block letters. So the number four use case is creating virtual attributes. So I can display a user's full name using their first name and last name. So I can get the full name. Okay, get the full name. This is an accessor. Okay, I can just add the concatenate the first name and last name to get the full name. So no need to store redundant data in the database. Okay, this is the benefit. So number five use case is, or the fifth use case is formatting price for display. So I can store price in sense but display it in a user friendly format. So if I want to display the price in a user friendly format, I can use the accessor and also set the price using the mutator. And there are some more use cases like converting JSON string to array. So I can store a JSON string in database but working it working with it as an array. So I can store it in the database as a JSON, but I can work with it in as an array. Then auto generating slugs for SEO URL. We know that in for SEO optimization we need slugs. So use mutator to mutate the slugs. Okay. Then there is handling boolean fields. I can handle boolean fields using accessor and mutator. So these are some of the common use cases, practical use cases for accessors and mutators. I hope by now you already have a good grasp of how to access and mutate Laravel model attribute values. So in the next video, I'll come up with another interesting Laravel tip. So stay tuned for that.